Sounds good for me.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the GPG podcast on our new, I think, gents, our kind of new slot. I think we've kind of agreed going forward. We're going to return to our Sunday evening slot slightly earlier than we originally used to go, mainly because of me, to be honest. These shows can obviously go on for a couple of hours, so I thought, you know, if we start a little earlier, it means I can finish a little earlier. And to be honest, it means that I'm not keeping the missus up because she's one that likes an early night, so an earlier finish is a little better for me. But thank you all for joining. Anyone that's in the chat so far, I can see we've got Misuko in there, Tugo and Guru was in there, Boxenberger was in there first as well. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Could we do something a little bit? Well, actually, we're not doing something a little bit different, but things may look a little bit different tonight. We've tried to use some of our existing graphics, but for those who attended our test on Friday, and thank you very much for anyone that attended, especially yourself, Pucks. We have switched over to OBS from StreamYard for tonight's show. We're going to see how this goes. Admittedly, I'm a little scared. The first time I've personally used this, I know we've used it in the past, but it's the first time I've used it. So, chat, please let me know how the audio is, particularly the volumes between myself, Luke, and Pucks, and also let me know how things are. Let me know if you think if it's better, if the quality's better, things like that. That would be wonderful. But to kick things off, actually, we don't have any video, so we don't have Luke's beautiful face on show for tonight, but we do have the sultry tones of Mr. Luke Steele. Welcome to the show, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Yeah, no video today. One day again. But yeah, no, very well. It's been quite a lot of gaming recently, which has been nice, actually. There's just so much like coming out at the moment, and so many like announcements and trailers and streams, and yeah, there's a lot. So it's quite a good time to be a gamer, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll hopefully have your beautiful face on show again in the future, mate. Pucks did help me do a little bit of testing on Friday where we can maybe get some Discord video in. To be frank, I just wanted to get this show out the way on OBS first, and then maybe I'll experiment with video if this goes smoothly. So hopefully we'll be able to get some video back on the show. But we do also have Pucks join us this evening. Puxley, how are you doing, my friend?
Yes, good evening all. I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, I'm doing good. I've managed to put some hours into some gaming. I say the Scorn video playing right now is my first ever Twitch stream, so that I could actually kind of easily capture it from Xbox, which annoyingly, I didn't realize in Twitch actually you had to tick a box to say, please keep my video for 14 days before deleting it. So I did about an hour's worth beforehand, realized that I'd made the mistake, so then I started a new game, and that's what you're seeing now. So So I kind of play this beginning bit kind of like I'm a new player, just so that it's, I guess, slower, and so that people maybe not seeing the game for the first time can, I don't know, just kind of experience it a bit from the beginning rather than having me rush through it, if you get what I mean. But apart from that, no, I'm very good, thank you. I mean, also my wife's been playing a lot of Disney's Dreamlight Valley as well, so whenever I'm not playing, I usually watch her play that as well. So it's an interesting combination in our household of what's going on.
I was going to say, you couldn't get two games further on the spectrum than Scorn and Disney's Dreamlight Adventure or whatever.
Oh, I know, two completely different parallels.
Yeah. To be fair, this looks just completely disgusting, Pucks. I'm not going to lie. It's
Oh, it is. Yeah, I think you're going to see some. Maybe from 10-15 minutes from now, you'll maybe see something quite disgusting, but I won't spoil anything. You'll see it happen. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I look forward to that. Yeah. To be fair, just a few moments ago, you kind of looked down and you could just see your own sort of skinless body.
Yes.
Which, yeah.
That gets weirder. You don't see it in this, unfortunately, but it does get weirder when you get a bit further in as well.
Oh, well, that's good.
But again, I'm not going to spoil it, so you guys have to play it to find out.
Yeah, well, we've got I think about an hour or so footage. So thanks for capturing that, Pucks. Yeah,
no worries.
Apologies that you had to do it twice. We did have some A Plague Tale footage lined up, but I was conscious that maybe that could be a little bit more spoilery than Scorn. Obviously there could be some spoilers in here, I guess, if you are looking forward to Scorn. But yeah, didn't want to spoil too much of a playthrough because I know a lot of people are very much looking forward to that. So, but we are coming off the back of what was an absolute bloody marathon of an episode last week where we spent the entire 2-hour show chatting about the CMA. Luke, I don't know whether you'll be pleased about this, but I don't think we're going to be chatting about the CMA tonight. I don't know if you need another therapy session this week or whether last week was good enough.
Not yet. Yeah, soon.
Yet.
Soon.
Yeah.
When there's more developments, there'll be more therapy, I think.
Although I did find it funny that straight after the show last week, I think Microsoft did put out like a really like a 35-page response to the CMA. Came out about 10 minutes before we ended. But yeah, we're not going to be delving into that today. I think what we'll do is we'll just talk about some games, which feels like it's been a little while since we've talked about just some games, what we've been playing. We've also got some, as Luke mentioned earlier, had some streams this past week. I know a few things that Luke in particular is very, very excited for. But before we get into any of that, let's have a little chat about what we've been playing this week. And Pux, obviously you were talking about Scorn there. Obviously it's your footage that we've got on show tonight. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about Scorn? How are you finding it so far, mate? Was this something you were looking forward to beforehand? How are you feeling about it, mate?
That's an interesting way to phrase it. So I know when I saw the original trailers for this, I was more intrigued by it. Again, like you said it, you kind of took the words out of my mouth earlier when you say it's just kind of very strange and disgusting and just creepy, really. And it's not something I've really seen much of before, at least not in recent years. It's quite a rarity in its genre. And I currently have a love-hate relationship with it. So for them, and a lot of reviewers as well have said that there's only one act in the game where there's kind of a bit of combat. But obviously the combat in the game is very flaky. So, and the checkpoints in the game, which are completely invisible to you, you don't know where they are. It's just running in the background somewhere. But I got to a point where I got quite far in, doing some combat sections, maybe about midway through the game. Got a tiny bit overrun at one point and died, and then realised I got put back about maybe 20 minutes worth of progress backwards, and I felt a bit discouraged at that point. So I put it down for that night and then came back to it the next day, tried it again, was just going through it like normal, going through the same section, and then during a kind of a little animation thing on an enemy, I ended up getting locked into a wall. So that, the character's collision kind of got stuck in a wall, and then the game wouldn't let me walk out of it. And so I did that thing where you try to maybe quickly cancel that into the main menu, load back in. Hopefully you've been put back to say like the doorway beforehand or something. But nope, it kept me right where I was. So I ended up having to refresh the save from the beginning of that act, which meant that I probably lost about an hour's worth of progress, which in the grand scheme of things isn't that bad, but a game that's quite slow moving like Scorn, it can feel like a century worth to do it again. So I got to a point I was like, oh, you know what, I'm going to give it a couple of days and then come back to it again. But it's strange because I am enjoying it despite what I've just said, but it's a very weird game because it's very atmospheric, which is really good. And I know in a lot of reviews as well, they've said that a number of people kind of highlight it in that it feels like it was a game made by artists first, in that they've kind of developed this world that visually looks absolutely fantastic, as disgusting as it is, but it fit like everything about that vibe is brilliant in my view. Like it's great in that disgusting way, but there's a lot of elements where it kind of feels like the gameplay was tacked on afterwards rather than gameplay first that fits the aesthetic. So it's a strange game to play. It's very slow paced. And the other thing that I do find strange is there's never any prompts or tutorials for anything. I know when you hit the start button, I think you might see me do that at one point where, it automatically brings up a controller screen that tells you what the buttons are. But at no point in the game does it tell you what things are if and when you pick them up or how to do anything. I think it was through the start screen I figured out that actually sprint was a thing. So, there you go. It's just appeared on the screen now.
Yeah, literally just sprinted on there, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't until like, oh, look, I've got a run button there. And so there's little things like that I found a bit quirky and strange. But But despite that, if you haven't played this game yet, chat, I don't let that put you off. I would encourage you to give it a go. The first puzzle, which is kind of what you're watching on the screen right now, is something, again, depending on how, dare I say, how switched on you are or how explorative you are. It can you'll either clock it very quickly what you have to do, or it might take you a long time. So I guess this video is kind of a spoiler for how you do the first puzzle if you're paying attention to it. But the puzzles come and go quite naturally in a good way. Like, it doesn't just kind of tell you, oh, you've now got to do this puzzle. You just kind of get to a point slowly throughout the kind of the beat of the gameplay where you then figure out that, oh, okay, I've got to figure out how to do this thing. You kind of figure out what the puzzle is, figure out how to solve it, and then you execute on that, if you get what I mean. So it's really nice to play in that kind of natural progression, but sometimes it's I don't want to say lack of help, but it's the lack of maybe just a small pop-up to say that you can do this or this thing is available to you. So, but that's a very, very minor gripe and not anything I would say would put you off. But I think there's a lot of people out there who would be put off by that. And I think there's so many YouTube videos as well of how you solve the first puzzle, which is what this massive room is. I think so many people seem to get stuck by the fact that there's no prompt or help in any way. But it's good fun. I definitely encourage you to try it if you haven't. Despite how you feel about it, Scott, in its disgusting way, give it a go if you really fancy it. But I'll forgive you if you don't.
Yeah, I don't think it's a game for me, to be perfectly honest, Pox. And you know, that's obviously nothing against the game. It's just not my style, shall we say? And it's not even necessarily the gameplay. I mean, how would you describe it? Is it a puzzle game then, Pox? Is that the main gameplay loop of it? Is it essentially a puzzle game, or how do you describe it?
I'd probably call it a first person story puzzle game first. I wouldn't say it's not like an action game. There's and the combat that there is slow paced in its own as well. Which again, I won't say anything to spoil. You won't see that in the video either. But yeah, it's more so a puzzler story game rather than anything else drastic. But yeah. I mean, Luke, I'm interested to see what you think about this because I think maybe a couple shows ago, I think you mentioned that this is kind of your bag, or at least like aesthetically it's your bag. But have you played it yet? Is this your kind of thing, gameplay wise, or have you tried it?
Yeah. So I mean, I was always quite into it because I followed it when it was announced back in like 2014. I saw it at the time, so I've been there for 8 years on it. I played, I think that well, so I got past this kind of giant. This whole thing like something like one big puzzle.
Yeah,
you do various mini puzzles to basically open a door effectively. So I've done this bit, and yeah, I think it's interesting the way it plays. It's definitely a puzzle game. That's what it is. Obviously, I've not got to the combat yet, but I've seen some videos. It's clear it's not a combat game at all.
Yeah.
It's not by all accounts. Folks, maybe you can correct me, but it's actually pretty shit at combat. So
it's awful. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's surprising they really put it in because it's not the focus of the game, and then they've apparently put it in some moments that are not great. But anyway, I'll probably get to those. But yeah, I played it for an hour. Yeah, I quite like that it's not. Well, I have mixed feelings about the fact that it doesn't guide you because, on one hand, I really like that because too many games guide you in too many ways these days. It kind of makes the fun of exploration and figuring things out. It kind of gets rid of that. It's one of the reasons I love like Outer Wilds, for example, because it just doesn't guide you at all, really, and it's up to you to try and figure stuff out, and that's great. On the one hand, there's the real issue I have with this game is, and it's simultaneously a positive, but the art style I love because it's just H.R. Giger, right? That's clearly the inspiration. He could have drawn it himself, effectively. But the way they use light is really weird in this game because they have because the environments are so samey and they don't have much variation. That's absolutely fine. There's not a problem with it. However, obviously in games, like you use light to dictate to the player something of importance or where you're supposed to go next or something like that. And there's a lot of areas in this game where they use light to focus on something that is purely environmental. It's nothing to do with what you're supposed to do. So it ends up being, I don't know, Pux, if you found it, but you're like, oh, that catches my eye because of the light. And then you go to it and it's nothing, right? And
Yeah.
you're like, okay, well, where do I go? So on the like, it's fine to be not, not really fully explain what's going on. I don't really mind that, or to even explain mechanics because I think that's a cool idea as well. But they haven't really thought about, or it doesn't seem like they thought about, the impact that lighting this game would have on players and directionality and trying to signpost people in a subtle way. It doesn't really work. But when it does work and when you do know where you're going, this puzzle, by the way, on screen, this took me like 20 minutes to figure this out. I think it's gone now, actually. I might be a bit behind. No, you're still on it. You're still on it.
Yeah. This is kind of part one of it. Yeah.
Yeah, this took me about 20 minutes to figure out this puzzle. It's very annoying. And in fact, you think you've got it like quite quickly, and then you don't. So you go on, and then it takes another 20 minutes. But yeah, I quite liked it. Like I like what I read. It's not like amazing or anything.
It's not game of the year, is it? But
no.
It's an enjoyable game if it's your kind of thing.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even call it fun necessarily. I just think it's engaging. You know what I mean? Like
it's intriguing. It draws you in because of how weird it is. Yeah,
exactly. It's a bit like Myst if it was disgusting, right? That's the way I describe it. It's like, it makes your brain work, and it's got an interesting visual style, and you kind of push on somewhat to see what the hell's going on because obviously it doesn't tell you any of that. It has an intro cutscene which suggests that some things that are happening, but you don't really know. So yeah, I don't want to lavish loads of praise on it because it's not. I've only played an hour, and I don't want to be too critical because I've only played an hour. But it's an interesting game.
Yeah, I guess interesting is maybe one way to put it. And I think you touch on something that sometimes I often struggle with, Luke, with these types of games, which is kind of it almost getting you in the right mindset for what type of game it is.
Yeah.
I guess in those early stages, just trying to help you understand, okay, this is what you should be doing, or this is how you should be approaching things, or this is how you should be looking. Because I think often what I find with sometimes puzzle games in general is just getting over that very first hurdle can be a little bit tricky. And then once you're over that hurdle, kind of the rest of the game kind of makes sense. You kind of know what you're looking for. And I think what I've seen from a lot of people, I guess, just the general discourse around the game online is a lot of people seem to kind of didn't really understand what this game was, which I found a little odd. A lot of people seem to go into it expecting almost like a first-person shooter rather than what is essentially a puzzle game, which I don't know why, because everything that they've shown has sort of, I guess, given me the correct impression as to what type of game it was. I've never once expected it to be a shooter or anything like that.
I suppose the one thing that didn't help in my view is when some of the later trailers came out, when it kind of got a bit more public attention, was when you saw the videos of the characters kind of holding like this weird gun that's alive, and it kind of comes apart in two, and then there's a weird tentacle things that come out, and then he kind of puts it back together again, and it looks like a weapon, right, in the context of the world. So I can appreciate why people may, especially if you haven't followed the game, if you only base it off of one trailer and that's it, I can see maybe why you mistake it. But then at the same time, in those trailers, it's not like you see someone shoot, like he doesn't shoot like a machine gun's worth of bullets at things. So, so yeah, it is a weird one. And I think, and Luke, you may have found this already, and I know you said not play it for too long, but like at no point, there's no like cut scenes or anything, or at least not even that I've come across.
No.
That kind of describe what's even the point of it all. It just feels like the point, or the fact that there's no point to it really. It's just this dead world and some ancient technology you've kind of been thrusted into out of nowhere, and you're just kind of working your way through it. Really, there's no real like, not saving the princess or no bullshit like that. It's solely you're you've been, I don't want to say brought alive, but you've kind of awakened for some reason, and you're just kind of working your way through what the bloody hell you've got in front of you, and that's kind of as simple as that. There's no cutscenes, there's no voice acting stuff going on, there's no weird mystical creatures. It's just solely darkness and dread and evil. I think it's not a bad way to describe it, but
yeah, it's and again, I quite like that to an extent. Like, it's mysterious. You're basically just trying to go somewhere. That's like the plot, at least from the start. So yeah, I think people should try it. I suspect like 80% of people will fucking hate it. But
I agree.
20% like will be like, yeah, I'm kind of into that. Like, it's one of those like very specific kind of individual games that most people will dislike, but some will really like.
Yeah, I'm glad it exists. I think, not I think I am glad it exists, but it almost does feel like a game that, I guess, I don't mean for this to sound bad, but it almost feels like a game that shouldn't. This is, to me, kind of a weird game. That the fact that this got greenlit in any way is almost a little strange to me, because, as you said, Luke, you would expect the vast majority of people who play this to maybe dislike it or even worse. But I am glad that this type of game exists, because I think, Pux, you kind of touched on it earlier. It's almost like the art came first. It's less of a game. It's more about the atmosphere. It's more about kind of the world that they've crafted, more than anything else. And not to kind of make it just about Game Pass, but I kind of think this is a game that would or does benefit from being in Game Pass, because it allows people to, maybe that 20%, Luke, that you were talking about. I think a lot of them maybe wouldn't try it because of maybe they're not too keen on the aesthetic or anything like that, but because obviously it exists in Game Pass, this is something that maybe they can give a try, and hopefully they'll end up enjoying. Maybe I'll give it a try. I have heard it's pretty short. I don't think it's too long. Maybe
I think it's about 7 hours apparently.
Yeah, which isn't.
I think it depends on how quickly you do the puzzles. Really, that seems to be where the hours estimate comes from.
Based on my current experience, I'm expecting it to be at least 25 hours for me to figure out some of these fucking puzzles. No, it's not that difficult, to be fair. It's just this one. I'm glad at least Pux is
still doing it now, right?
Yeah. So I know that it took you longer as well, because I'm like, I was sat there like, for God's sake, I'm a lawyer. I should be able to do this damn puzzle. But yeah, it's quite difficult.
Can I ask, what is going on screen at the moment? What exactly are you doing? Are you rearranging these? It's a bit small on my screen, admittedly, but it just looks like you're kind of rearranging some eggs or something.
Can you see the one that looks like it's got two little kind of yellowy eyes on it? The one I'm grabbing now. So you're moving that onto the kind of the light bulb thing in the top left.
Right. Oh, okay, yeah.
And again, you're not told this. It's just something you kind of figured out, and you go, okay, I moved one yellow thing, and then the claw thing grabbed it and did something, and it's like, okay, you notice there's a second one, so you just kind of then start to rearrange it. There you go. I've completed it now. So you eventually finally get it there, and then this is where it starts going. That's when you kind of realize it. The weirdness kind of begins shortly, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we're about 30 minutes into the show, and you've just completed that. So you and Luke are probably about the same length of time on this puzzle, then, at least. So yeah, it's not just you, Luke. I suspect I would struggle with this quite a lot, actually. But I've seen it now, so I'll go and complete it in 5 minutes and bask in my intelligence. So yeah. So, but are you looking forward to playing more, Pux? Is it a game you're going to go back to?
I'm kind of. Yeah, especially when it comes to quickly going back to the combat stuff. I did see a few clips on YouTube the other day, and people were saying about how there are something about there apparently being certain cues in the game where you're kind of meant to learn that actually if you don't engage with the creatures that kind of try to attack you and you kind of run away, that they're actually following their own path, and then eventually they'll kind of like go away, kind of thing. and apparently you can avoid shooting most, or trying to kill most things entirely. Apparently, I'm yet to go back and try it, but I will do soon. But outside of those kind of niggles I have with on that side of things, yeah, I'm looking forward to jumping in and as you say, because it's a relatively short game anyway, puzzles pending. I kind of feel like I'm enough into it now that I might as well give it a bit more of my attention and finish it. Like, I'd like to say that I've completed it. I suppose the only other thing to add for anyone who is an achievement hunter by any kind of stretch, I think in that first puzzle, or like to come still on the video, there's technically one missable achievement, and you basically have to replay the game again, do this beginning sequence, and then you kind of select a different option. That's all I'll say. But yeah, if you like achievements, you kind of have to play the first bit of this game twice. But I think outside of that, most others are just story related, and that's about it.
Yeah, maybe want to keep an eye on for those who use Microsoft Rewards. You get those weeks where you need to get at least 3 achievements in a week. So maybe it's a game I'll save for one of those weeks when I'm struggling for achieves. So wonderful. We've got a few more people in chat. Actually, I just want to give a little bit of a shout. I can see BMG's dropped by. He's been ditched by his son, who I believe it's his birthday today. So happy birthday to his son BMG. But obviously he is far too cool for you, mate. I guess he's probably not playing Destiny. Let us know what he's playing on, mate. But it does sound like BMG's been ditched. But it does mean you have the chance to join us this evening, mate. So it is a pleasure to have you in the chat. We've also got I was going to say Luke. We've got Luke there. Obviously, Luke's here with us. Mesuko, Tuku, and Gulu's in there as well. Thank you all very much for joining. But yeah, speaking of Luke, what have you been playing this week, mate?
I've been playing quite a lot, really. So yeah, obviously Scorn a bit, Plague Tale Requiem as well, which I've played a couple of hours of, which we'll talk about. Overwatch 2, still that's kind of a daily thing, I would say at this point. Trying to think what else. I'm really, really into a game called Vampire Survivors at the moment.
I did see you on that, mate. I've not heard of that though, actually.
Yeah, so it's for reference, this is on Game Pass. So anybody, I think it's only on PC Game Pass, though. I could be wrong on that because I think it's a PC only game at the moment. And I've heard about this for a few months because it was in early access essentially, and I saw it and I was like, oh, okay. But it didn't, like, when you see this game, and I'm gonna say some things now and you're going to be like, really? And then like you'll see the game and then you'll be like, really? But genuinely, out of all the games that I'm playing at the moment, that's the one that I can't put down. Like, that's the one I keep coming back to just for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes sometimes. And I love it that much that I actually bought it on Steam because it's only £3. So I could play it on the Steam Deck because it's the perfect type of game.
I've seen this, Luke. I've just Googled it.
I've done the same, yeah.
It looks really old, I guess is one way to describe its aesthetic. It's kind of like a top-down. I did see this a while back.
It's 10 on Steam.
Yeah, I remember it getting it. I didn't realize it was a skin, but I do remember it like really getting really popular. Is it kind of like a twin stick shooter kind of game almost?
It's not even a twin stick. It's a single stick game. Okay. That's the only input you have is one stick or the WASD keys if you're on mouse, but it has controller support as well. So literally,
it's like Gauntlet on steroids.
Yeah, literally, the game is you pick a character, and each character has different abilities. To some extent, like they have a different starting weapon, and they might have a specific like buff or advantage. And you're plonked on this kind of sprite map, and your character auto fires their weapon, so you don't even have to fire the weapon.
Oh, right, okay.
So all you have to do is move, basically. And you look at that and that description, and it sounds like that's shit, right? Like that's just not interesting at all. It's one of the most addictive games I've ever played, like genuinely, because the basic premise is it's effectively a roguelite, So you have a run in a level, and obviously you're not trying to get anywhere in the level. All you're trying to do is kill as much as possible and survive for as long as possible. So you're moving about, and then the enemies. There are many different types of enemies, but they drop gems, which are very easily identifiable. And as you pick them up, you level up. So the first 5 levels, you don't have to get many gems, for example, to get those. But obviously, that amount increases as your levels go up. And the gems, once you hit a level, the game kind of pauses almost, and it gives you a choice of 3 different buffs. And you can kind of choose, like, for example, let's say your character has a throwing knife as a weapon. There might be a buff to give you an extra throwing knife so that when you auto fire, you throw 2 knives rather than one. And so on and so forth. And there are different kind of health buffs and armor buffs and all of that stuff. Yeah, there it is on the screen.
So for the benefit of anyone watching, this is the game.
This is the game.
It looks busy. Is maybe
yes. Well, this is the thing. So all those blue things are gems, by the way. It starts off really rudimentary. So like you've got a few enemies on screen, and you've not got much going on. As you level up, I mean, I got to level 30 yesterday on this map, which is and this is representative of what it is at that level. It's just utter chaos. You are completely surrounded most of the time by like hundreds and hundreds of enemies, and there's lots of bats here, but there are like skeleton warriors and like plant creatures and all sorts of other ghosts. You're just kind of like, you're just trying to survive. And obviously, as I say, every time you level up, you get an extra buff that you can choose from. There are then like things in the level that you can pick up. So like there are sometimes health can drop, for example, because otherwise you can't heal. And that's it. I mean, that's like the game. And then outside of that, you can also pick up treasure chests in the level, and they give you money as well as buffs. And the money, when you go back to the main screen, you can use that money on a couple of things. So you can buy new characters. There's like a big roster of different characters that slowly unlock. So you can use your coins to buy them. All of which are kind of like archetypes of, this kind of era of gaming almost. You can also, there's like a screen for power up. And in that screen, there are lots of different buffs that you can apply permanently to your character, so that obviously you can start to go on a run where you've spent a load of money in the background, so that you're already pretty strong when you get into a level. It's like fantastic. It's ridiculous. The music is amazing. Like just in this one level, the music in this is amazing. There are different levels that you unlock as well, so it's not just what you see on screen. There's different bits, and the weapons also, you can level them up. And I haven't got to this point yet, but in a level, the weapons can evolve, so they can like transform into different things if you level them up far enough. And kind of like one of the nice things about the game is you don't know what those are, so suddenly you'll be confronted with this like amazing transformation, like a Pokemon-esque transformation of a weapon. It's just I know it doesn't look like much on screen, but I was exactly the same. I was like, really? This is what people are so excited about? And then I played it, and I was like, I played one round and it lasted 5 minutes, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I kind of put it down, and I was like, I'm going to play that again. And now I've like played a couple of hours. It's all about like finding a different, like building a character out in a run and thinking about what you want to focus on. And some wield magic and others don't. You can mix and match. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So yeah, it's on Game Pass for PC. Obviously, a potato can run it, as you can see. Although it does get really intense towards the end. So I imagine some rigs might struggle CPU wise.
Yeah.
When there's like lots of stuff going on. But yeah, it's awesome.
I'm gonna have to check this out. Look, to be honest, it based on what you're saying, and just on those screenshots that we saw, and I know obviously it's not a twin stick, but I'm kind of getting like Geometry Wars vibes, where kind of
Yes.
Geometry Wars is very
Yeah.
much about just as much the survival and avoiding things, just as much as it is actually the shooting element. And I remember playing Geometry Wars so much when the 360 launched. I think it was a 360 because it came bundled with PGR 3 or maybe 4, whichever one launched with the
one of the
360.
two.
Yeah, and I remember absolutely loving that game. I've gone back to it a few times. I'm getting kind of Geometry Wars vibes from this and from what you've said. So I might have to check that out actually, because that does sound like a game, especially if you maybe just wants something to play for 10 minutes. You can just go and do a run or two and then jump back. So
exactly.
yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, but obviously the aesthetic when you look at it is kind of like, what, really? This is it?
Yeah.
But I guess it goes to show, it's not always just about how it looks and 3D graphics and stuff. It's how games play and feel.
Yep, it does the most. Yeah, it just does the most important thing, which is it's just really fun. Like it's just really fun to play, and like the art style is awesome. Like it's deliberately retro, but it's really cool looking and basic in that way, and the music is appropriate to how it looks. Yeah, it's really good. So I would highly recommend.
Definitely. I do want to just give a quick shout out. We have got the Indie Gamer in the chat. So Indie, welcome to the show, mate. I do want to say a big thank you to Indy, because he's been unbelievably helpful this past week in helping me get to grips with OBS. If it wasn't for Indy, we probably would still be on the basic free version of StreamYard with massive logos in the top right hand corner and things like that. So Indy, thank you very much, mate. Appreciate all the help that you give me this past week. I know he's feeling a little bit under the weather as well. So Indy, hopefully you're feeling a little bit better today, mate, and I'm sure we'll have to have you on the show sometime in the future, mate. So yeah, well, I've been playing a lot of Plague Tale this past week. I know you've played a little bit as well, Luke. Have you managed to touch it yourself, Luke, Pux?
No, I've not touched Plague at all yet, I'm afraid.
Have you played the first one?
Something I will be jumping onto. Yes, I did, yes.
Did you enjoy the first one?
Yeah, I did. I didn't actually end up finishing it in the end. I got most of the way through. It's one of those ones I kind of put down, other stuff was going on, and I just never kind of had the opportunity to pick it back up, and then before I knew it, I'd just forgotten about the game, really. But yeah. I really did enjoy it. It was actually one of those ones, it's actually one of the first games I played when I built my PC way back in, I think, 2019, when I signed up to PC Game Pass. And it was one of those ones where I'd never heard of it before, didn't remember seeing any trailers for it, and I thought, well, sod it, it's on Game Pass, I'll give it a go. And I fell in love with it, actually, the first game. I really enjoyed it, quite surprisingly, because I didn't know what kind of game it was at all, but something about it just really gripped me. So the news of a sequel looked really fascinating, but again, I've other stuff going on and playing some Scorn. I just haven't got around to booting it up yet, but it's definitely something I'll be jumping on very soon.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend finishing the first game if you get a chance, Pucks. It's not that long, so if you put some significant time in, then I imagine you're not too far from the end. But I definitely recommend, if you do plan on jumping in, maybe finishing the first game. But I've been really enjoying what I've played so far. I really enjoyed the first game, and this is kind of just a step up almost in every way, in my opinion, from that first game. Look, I think you said you were maybe a few hours into the game so far, maybe two or 3 hours. How have you found it so far, mate?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, it's a kind of it's what a sequel, from the couple of hours that I played of it. It's kind of what a sequel should be, which is, the first game, but bigger and better and more expansive and more beautiful and that sort of thing. Like that's what it should be. And I think it's just an awesome. So what I've played so far, it's really good. It's not gonna. I don't think, if you didn't like the first one, I don't think you'll like this, because it's much of the same in terms of mechanics. A lot of stealth. Obviously, it's not really a combat game as such. So you probably won't enjoy this. But if you did enjoy the first game like I did, then this is kind of an expanded version of that, and it gives me sort of, I don't know, the bits of it so far. Like, I think it feels like they took inspiration from like things like Uncharted for this, and I don't mean in terms of like movement or anything like that. But like that kind of globe-trotting, kind of big moments happening, all like a cinematic type
Yeah.
blockbustery feel. That's kind of what the feeling I get from it. I think already in the first couple of hours there are moments like that. And yeah, I mean, it's a really good looking game as well.
I've got lots of envy because you're playing it on your beefed up PC.
Yeah.
So I am
Yeah.
very jealous. That was one of the kind of the talking points this past week was the whole 30 FPS argument. So, but yeah, it's unbelievably pretty. Even on the Series S and X, which I've played it on.
Yeah. So the only thing was I did the wrong thing because I played it on PC first, and then I was like, oh, I can transfer. You can play cross save basically.
Yeah.
So I was in the room and I was like, oh, you know what? I'll just I'd already preloaded it like ages ago on the Series A. So I was like, I'll play. And it was only maybe an hour after I'd stopped playing it initially on PC, and then I was like, oh man, this is like like a bit of a come down from the
Yeah.
because obviously it's 30 FPS. I don't necessarily I'm not 60 FPS or die, which might surprise people considering I mostly game on PC, but like I don't necessarily mind where something is pushing balls like this game is.
Yes.
So that wasn't too big of a deal, but the reduction in image quality is quite significant to at least what I was playing as against.
Okay, yeah. I thought it would have been the frame rate that would have impacted you the most because it looks beautiful on a Series X as well. So if you're seeing it's a noticeable come down from what you're seeing, then I think that's testament to the quality of the visuals on PC.
Yes, yeah, it looks great. And yeah, I'm on a 3080 at the minute, but you get the 60 FPS maxed out. You need to use DLSS obviously, because it's really demanding natively, as many games are now. But it looks wonderful. Like it's a really impressive game visually. Definitely sort of top 5, I'd say, that I've played this gen visually.
What are your other 4?
Not number 1. Oh God, I don't know.
What are the contenders?
Number 1, the number 1 game this gen, which is actually a cross-gen game, is Horizon Forbidden West visually, on PlayStation 5, because that game is quite amazing, and the Decima engine is amazing. So that one, Forza Horizon.
Yeah,
is 5 is also up there. That would be in the top 5. Ratchet and Clank, obviously. I mean, it just looks like a CG movie, basically. This, and then probably one more, but I can't remember
Last of Us?
What that might be. Yes, yeah, probably The Last of Us Part 1, actually. Yeah, probably.
It is,
up there for sure.
A stunning game. I did tweet about it because I have played this across the Series S, the Series X, and on my laptop. My laptop's not quite as beefy as your PC, unfortunately, Luke. But one thing that was noticeable, less the visuals because I was only running it at say medium on PC, but more the frame rate. I was getting sort of north of 60, say between 60 and 90 on my laptop, and going from 60 to 90 VRR down to 30 was quite noticeable. But on the Series S, actually, because I play my Series S on a VRR monitor, you can enable it does enable the 40 FPS mode, which is a little bit smoother as well. So it's actually been a little bit smoother for me on the Series S compared to the Series X. But I think when it comes to the visuals, the frame rate, because it is a slower paced game generally, you can get away with it a bit more. But going on one of the points that you made, look, and we'll keep this as spoiler free as physically possible, but they do give Amicia a few more tools this time around. I'm not entirely sure exactly where you're up to, Luke, so I don't want to say exactly, but there is a little bit more that you can do this time around. It was actually one of the big improvements I think that the game has. So the when you're in some of those moments, the frame rate can be not an issue, but you do feel it a bit more because obviously the frame rate is kind of more how the game feels as much as anything else. But I'm about, let's say, 7 or 8 hours in at this point. I think I'm on chapter 8 at the moment, and I've enjoyed every minute I've played so far. As you said, Luke, it's kind of bigger and better almost in every way. In fact, I can't think of a way that it's maybe not better than the first. Really enjoy obviously apart from the looks, the music again is fantastic. All the music in the first one was awesome. I really like the voice acting again. I really enjoyed that in the first game. I think particularly the actress who plays Amicia is very good. The sort of the character development from Amicia from the first game to the second game as well. You can see she's been through some shit is kind of all I'll say. So it's interesting to see how she's developed between those games, and you've got the dynamic between her and Hugo, which is good as well. So overall, I'm just really enjoying the game. It's probably sort of, dare I say it, my favorite game I've played so far this year. Obviously, I want to see how the story pans out because, Puck, you didn't finish the first one, but the first one kind of is a bit batshit crazy, particularly towards the end. I won't say any more than that. So I'm curious as to where this one goes from that perspective. But yeah, really enjoying it so far, and I'll probably try to get that finished this next week if I can. I don't know how long it is. Luke, do you know roughly how long it's supposed to be?
I think I'd read somewhere it was about 12 hours, something like that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So yes, I'm probably halfway-ish. I mean, the first game was about that as well, wasn't it? Sort of the 10 to 12 hour mark, which, in my opinion, is actually just is a perfect length for this type of game. Because I am looking at my backlog at the moment, and I've decided I'm going to play Persona 5 next, and that's probably about 120 hours apparently. So
easily.
Yeah, I've got that to look forward to. But overall, yeah, really enjoying it. Bucks, do you happen to have any sort of questions out of interest, for not to put you on spot or anything, mate, but for me, a look about A Plague Tale Requiem that we can maybe answer without spoiling things too much?
You know what? I don't think so. I think the big question I do have is mainly for Luke to say, are you playing the game on your new beefy 4090? Whatever it is.
No, I'm waiting for free parts to arrive, and then I can build.
Your 4090's arrived though, hasn't it, Luke? You were saying.
Yes, I have that.
We should have had cams on. We should have cams on. You could have showed it off and let the world see.
I know. Let the world see if I can lift it.
Is it a monster? Is it actually a monster as big as what the internet tells me it is? Is it massive?
Yeah, it's absolutely massive. Yeah, I did post a picture on Twitter of it laying in its wrapping next to a Nintendo Switch. If you want to get some semblance of scale, although that picture only gives you a semblance of scale as to length, how long it is. What you don't see is that you probably need to stack like 4.5 switches on each other to get the width of it as well.
Okay.
Holy shit!
So Jesus,
it's absolutely enormous. Like it's huge, and not only is it huge, but when you open the box, at least for this one, you're greeted alongside the graphics card with an anti-sag bracket, just to emphasize the fact that this needs some extra support, basically, because otherwise it will just destroy your PCIe slot in your motherboard because it's so heavy. But yeah, I'm waiting on my motherboard, processor, and my case actually.
So what's the processor you're getting then? I'm kind of quite intrigued in this, not to derail the the original questions.
Right.
No, it looks like desperate for this
it's
section.
Better than the same. Yeah, I know. This is a PCMR section, so we haven't had one of those for weeks. So I'm getting the 13900K. So the newest top line Intel i9.
Nice.
So yeah.
That water cooled, I assume. You're water cooling that bad boy.
Yes. I have NZXT Kraken all in one.
Oh wow, cool.
So that actually came the other day as well. So yeah, but full specs for disclosure, so everybody knows. Yeah, that processor, 4090. Motherboard I won't go into because it's a motherboard, but it's a good motherboard. I've got 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM running at 5600 megahertz. 2 SSDs, so NVMe, about 3 terabytes total. And then I had to get a
A
1,000 watt.
3 terabyte NVMe, did I just hear?
No, I've got 2 NVMe's, one 1 terabyte and one 2 terabyte.
Okay, makes more sense.
So, so those and then a 1,000 watt power supply.
Nice. Are you reusing any parts from your existing rig, Luke?
No, this is
just
a brand new
brand
rig.
new entirely.
Yeah, this is completely brand new rig. My wife is having my rig, so she will use that to play Overwatch 2 and probably nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that's fully deserved, considering I believe she was the one that secured you the 4090.
That's correct. So if anything, so that's her payment, really. But yeah, it's I just thought that like there's no point getting a 4090 if you're not gonna really go for it. I think if you're putting it in a rig where your CPU is a couple of years old, then that CPU is still like amazing, but it's going to bottleneck the GPU even more than something brand new would. And obviously Intel have literally just released new CPUs, and I consider a Ryzen as well, but I tend to stick with Intel and Nvidia, so I just double down on that. So, but yeah, I think the new Intel one goes up to 5.8 gigahertz in terms of kind of boost clock, which is just like insane now. Like, I mean, the speed of some of this stuff's amazing. So I'm really excited. So I to be honest, I was like, I didn't really want to play Plague Tale because I was like, I'll just wait and then I'll see what it is. But in another way, I'm kind of glad that I did, because I'll be able to kind of immediately tell, okay, well, I know exactly how I can run this on my old rig, and what can this one give me. But I've seen some people getting like, Scott, like the town area early in the game that you go to, like that's pretty demanding. It's one of the most demanding areas in the early game.
Yeah,
and I've seen people like on DLSS 3 on a 4090 getting like 120 frames in that area, which is just like, amazing.
Yeah.
So,
have you got to the night? Have you got to something happens and then you walking at night is kind of the only way I can describe it. Have you got to that bit? Yeah. Absolutely beautiful scene. For some reason, my laptop really struggled with that part. Like it dipped to like the mid 30s on that, while normally it's kind of between 60 and 90. I don't know why. Obviously it's kind of in the town. I don't know if it's something to do with the lighting, with it being moonlight. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know an awful lot about that, but really struggled with that. It did
dip on mine as well. Yeah, so I don't know what's going on with that, but it did dip. Surprisingly, the thing that didn't dip, which I thought would dip, is the rats.
Yeah.
Like I was sure when they were introduced, and I mean, by the way, that's super impressive. Like what they're doing with those now, like the amount. Obviously, it was impressive in the first one, but I think, is it 300,000 they can concurrently display now, or something like that?
It's something silly based on what I've seen. Like there's some scenes that are, I think, a little bit further on than where you're at the moment, Luke, where I was just like, holy shit. Like you're in these massive kind of open areas and they're just everywhere. It is super impressive. Yeah, but you're right. I was surprised. I was expecting it to maybe tank a little bit, but it managed to handle that fine. Steady, but just certain scenes, particularly at night, that it struggled. So
it's a deservedly demanding game, though.
Yes,
because it is like, I don't want to spend too long on it, obviously, but like texture quality in that game is unbelievably good.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of Decima Engines level, which is like, anybody who's played Death Stranding or Horizon, like textures are generally some of the best looking things in that game. So it's really good. It's really, really good.
Yeah, and Asobo aren't a huge studio either. It's not, again, that like they had a budget that was anywhere near something like Horizon or The Last of Us or anything. So I think they deserve a lot of credit for what they've managed to achieve. And I'm really looking forward to playing it a fair bit. One last question on the PCMR section though, Luke. How much is it killing you right now, seeing that 4090 sitting right next to you and not utilizing it.
I don't. Well, it's pretty hard. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, it was hard to take it out and then kind of wrap it back up, put it back in the box. But it's in a huge box with all my other parts, and I just kind of like go in and I'm like, oh, memories.
Yeah, I mean, it's in a huge box just anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, just anyway. Yeah,
thing,
yeah. It's just in a massive box as it is. So yeah, it's ginormous. I'll try and get some. Maybe next depends on when the parts come in. But if we're on camera next Sunday, I'll hopefully have access to it so I can show you just how big it is on the screen because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen a lot of the Intel stuff that came out this past week, because obviously it is the Raptor Lake generation, I believe. That's generation, right, yeah. The reviews kind of came out, and they've kind of smoked in AMD in kind of everything. Almost, it seems like, even in the lower end of the value and productivity of gaming and everything, it seems like they've kind of really hit out the park this time around, which I guess that's the benefit of competition in that space, isn't it? Really. So,
no, absolutely. Yeah, they've done what they needed to do. Really, it's I mean, AMD were probably in a way they still are the leader in the CPU space, at least amongst enthusiasts, because they just offer great, super great processors across the entire range, but at really good prices, which is the main thing Intel were always bad at. But Raptor Lake, it's still expensive, right? I mean, if you're getting a 3900K, like, that's an expensive processor, but actually relative to AMD, it's about right. So whereas before Intel would have charged, more than whatever AMD's top line offering was. So
yeah, I think from what I've seen at the high end, the kind of comparable CPUs, I think the Intel's not on the kind of betters the AMD counterpart while also being slightly cheaper at the same time, which is obviously a little bit of a switcheroo, I think, in that space compared to years gone by. So looking forward to seeing. I say I'm looking forward to it. I'm just going to be filled with envy when you start posting screenshots of whatever that bloody thing can produce as well. What game are you going to be playing first, mate? Is it going to be A Plague Tale? Or have you got any games lined up? Obviously, Cyberpunk seems to be one of the showcase games for DLSS 3.
I think Plague Tale will probably be the first one because it's the one I'm playing right now. But the second one is definitely Cyberpunk to see how that performs. I may even go for it and boot up Star Citizen and see if I can get like 60 for a change, because you can't otherwise. But I think actually a lot of the issues with that game frame rate wise are because of servers. But anyway. But yeah, Cyberpunk is like, before Plague Tale was the number one I wanted to check out.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that. I'm also quite looking forward to trying out Forza Horizon 5 as well. To see just kind of like standard boost what that looks like. So yeah, I will be posting pictures.
Yeah, we'll have to look forward to those screenshots. Indie Gamer says Hollow Knight on the 4090 at 500 FPS.
Yes.
The smoothest of the smooth gameplay there. So you'll need a new monitor at that rate if you're getting frame rates that high. Yeah, but I think that concludes our PCMR section for this week. It's become a semi regular section. I'm sure we'll come back to it in the future, in the not too distant future, as well. But shall we chat a little bit about some of the news that's came about this past week, gents?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Where would you like to start, Pux? Luke's just had his PCMR section. Is there anything in particular this past week that's tickled your fancy that you'd like us to start with?
I'm probably more excited for the Resident Evil stuff than I am the Silent Hill, only because I didn't play much of it when I was younger, which I know Luke's really looking forward to it. So I suppose we can start with Resident Evil, because I know we can all get a say in that, at least, is my understanding.
Yeah, we'll start there. So actually, Pux, I didn't really check out that stream. I did watch the Silent Hill stream, but the Resident Evil one I think was on later. It was after the Silent Hill stream, and I wasn't too interested, to be perfectly honest. So do you want to catch me up on what they showed off?
Yeah, I'm doing it sort of from memory now. So they showed a bit more footage for the Resident Evil Village DLC. Luke, chime in by the way if I'm forgetting anything.
Yep.
But and they also don't say revealed, but they kind of showed off some more gameplay for adding third-person mode to Resident Evil Village as well. And they also released a demo that anyone can download on, I believe, most platforms where the game's available. Outside of Switch, of course, I believe. Uh, and I actually played the demo to give, because I haven't actually got Village, believe it or not. As much as I like the Resident Evil series, I played the demo before the game was out. I really enjoyed it. I had all the intention of buying it, but then stuff going on at the time stopped me because I knew I wouldn't be able to put the time in. And then I was playing other stuff and never picked it up. So around with the gold edition coming out soon as well, I may well pick up the game then and jump in properly. But I know from what I played of it, I love the look of the game. Third person plays very nicely as well. I have played the full game, I should say, but I had not mine around a friend's place. But yeah, it's really cool, really good fun in first person. It is less scary and less eerie to play in third person, but I suppose if you're into Resident Evil and you kind of just like that different aesthetic, and I like the reasoning behind why they said they revealed the third person mode about because it's kind of a nicer entry point for people that are kind of too scared to play it because they don't like the horror aspect. Whereas to be able to see the person you're controlling kind of takes some of the ease away. And even though I enjoyed playing in first person, especially Resident Evil 7, but playing it in third person, I immediately felt that sense of separation between yourself and the character, which was quite nice. So if you just kind of want to have, dare I say, more of a casual playthrough rather than for the intense horror, or whatever you want to try and get out of it, then third person is definitely the way to go. So in terms of Village, I don't think I've missed much out, Scott. Luke, sorry, have I? Was there any other big details?
I think that was no. I think I would say it's so the more footage of the third person mode, confirmation of the release date, which I think we might have had already for the DLC, which is Shadows of Rose. I think.
Yes, yeah.
And then there's a Mercenaries mode, and you can get all of those things by buying the Winter's expansion, which is the separate purchasable thing within Village. So yes, I'm not really interested in Mercenaries mode or anything, but I am really interested in the DLC because I played and finished, and well, I love Resident Evil anyway. But
yeah, no, the Rose stuff looks really good fun.
Yeah, yes, and it's a continuation of Village, the Rose stuff. So it's not like a a side story or anything like that. It's kind of a tiny little sequel in its own way.
Yes, definitely. And I think the other thing they showed off as well was what they call it, Resident Evil RE-verse or something, which is like the weird kind of multiplayer thing.
Multiplayer thing, yeah, that they've got, that they've delayed a lot of times.
Yeah.
Is anyone excited for this? Luke and Pucks, obviously, as big fans of Resident Evil, I don't have that same affinity. The last Resident Evil game I played was 7, and I quit after a couple of hours because I wasn't really enjoying it. So it's not really a franchise or a universe I'm like too keen on, but I have seen not an awful lot of positivity for Reverse. I don't think people seem awfully keen on it.
I personally cannot give less of a shit about it personally, but
yeah,
I mean, I appreciate what they're doing. Like they're trying to expand the franchise, which it's fine. But at least for me, maybe Luke, you feel the same way. It's just not quite the vibe Resident Evil's all about. So it's almost like they're trying to turn it into not a battle royale, would you call it? Almost like a team deathmatch type game. Oh no, what's it? The like the Friday the 13th type stuff, or Dead by Daylight. It's like that kind of gameplay from what I understand. Luke, if you disagree, by all means, correct me. But that's what I feel this kind of RE-verse thing is all about. But no, I don't care for it personally. I'm not interested in it at all.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they're still. Oh, well, obviously they're still going to come out with it, but obviously, I think there's been quite a bit of sort of almost negativity towards it since it was first revealed quite a long time ago now, if I remember correctly as well. It doesn't seem like people are particularly keen on it, but at the same time, it's probably not aimed at maybe people who already love the franchise. It's probably aimed at a different audience that maybe wouldn't typically check that out, like maybe that asymmetric multiplayer type game like Dead by Daylight and things like that. If it is that type of game, well, obviously I'm not too sure. It seems to be all the rage now. There's even a Dragon Ball asymmetric
oh, really?
game called Dragon Ball The Breakers that's come out to not an awful lot of fanfare. It's probably fair to say.
So you yourself aren't a fan of that either, as a massive Dragon Ball fan?
No, I've not tried it yet. To be honest, I do like those types of games. Really, really enjoyed Dead by Daylight and Friday the 13th. Is there another one? Obviously, we just had Ghostbusters come out as well, which I think is that style of game, isn't it? If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Which I think people seem to be enjoying from the bits and pieces I've seen. So yeah, I'm a fan of that type of game, but nothing I've seen of this makes it sort of stand out from what I've seen so far, at least anyway.
I suppose the only other thing to add, which was almost like the star of the whole stream in the first place, was actually seeing some updated 5 minutes worth of various footage for Resident Evil 4 remake, which looks absolutely insane. Like, if you loved the look of the Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 remakes, 4 just kind of blows it all out of the water. It's those two, but just better. Like, you can tell they've taken what they've learned from making 2, a bit of 3, even though it was a bit of a cheap, quick turnaround in comparison to 2. But faults aside, that Resident Evil 4 looks phenomenal, and I personally can't wait to get my hands on it. But again, it's one of those things where it's easy to get excited about if you're a fan of the series. But I appreciate, Scott, for people that don't really care about it at all. It could just feel like this little thing which a small group of people are humming about in the background, but that's about it. But it looks fantastic. And if you haven't checked out the gameplay, for anyone listening, then please just go watch it. Even if you're not into horror, just check it out. Just see what you think visually and gameplay wise. I think it looks quite incredible. But yeah, Luke, I'd be interested to see what you think of it.
Yeah, I mean, it just looks amazing, really. I think, as a huge fan of, I mean, obviously, big fan of Resident Evil anyway. Resident Evil 4 is just an amazing game, and it's actually, I think, if you're not into Resident Evil that much because of the horror, 4 is a great game to play, because 4 was the kind of start of a bad path actually for Resident Evil, but it was the best version of this path, which is like a survival horror game, but that's kind of action led, and it just absolutely nails that. So if you haven't played Resident Evil 4 before, then the remake will be a good place to start.
Has the game been Is this the first time it's been remade in any way since the GameCube?
Yes.
Dare I say?
There's been various ports
of
it to lots of different things, with some graphical updates here and there, not big things, just kind of general stuff. So, so this is the first remake, actual proper, ground up remake, if you want to call it that.
I do recall playing it at a friend's house on a GameCube, but I would have been fairly young when that came out. Was that about 20 years ago now?
It was about 2004, was it?
Yeah, 2004, so something like that.
So Christ, it's been some time. So it's. I'm not really that big on horror, maybe in the same way that you guys are, which is why I've never really sort of clicked with the franchise like other people have. So maybe 4 will be kind of a good place to step in. As I said, I do remember playing it. I couldn't tell you if I completed it, and I can't really recall an awful lot about the story, to be perfectly honest. So it would be kind of like a fresh take for me, I think.
Yeah, that's good. I think 4 is great because, as I say, it's kind of action led, and there is survival horror, obviously, but it much less of that compared to other Resident Evil games. And it's also just so dumb. You know what I mean? It's so fun with it as well. You probably saw that from the gameplay, which I think some people were worried about, because they worried there's been some changes to certain sections of the game, like one of the main areas that you came to, which actually starts the gameplay demo. That area in the old game was in daylight, and so they've changed that to nighttime, and people worried kind of initially if that meant maybe they were tweaking the tone of the game to make it more kind of horror led, kind of horror atmospheric. but it's like they haven't done that at all clearly from the gameplay footage. But they are just trying to mix it up for people who haven't, obviously played Resident Evil 4 way back when and enjoyed it, to try and give those people almost a fresh experience as well. So yeah, I think it's a great game to start with. It's super silly. Leon's just like kind of a dork in the game, but that's why it's fun. It's like the roundhouse kicks and all of that stuff. There's a bit in the trailer with a cow where he sets that on fire. There's just like loads of nonsense that happens in the game, but it's great. And but the remake just it looks it looks amazing. Like, even if you're not a fan of Resident Evil, I think like it shows how good the RE engine is, that it looks visually super impressive. Looks really nice. Will be 60 FPS because that's what RE engine games are. Just the redesign of characters and the enemies. They've even changed like enemy behavior a little bit, so they've got the Ganados have new moves now and stuff, and they can grab you and hold you for other Ganados to kill you. I was just kind of blown away by it, really, because I think Capcom have just nailed this art of taking like their old Resident Evil games and like remaking them. Like, they're just really good at it. So.
Yeah.
I know there's one thing which, in a funny way, got people raging online as part of the trailers, which is so in the original, there's a point relatively early on where there's a dog that's trapped in like a bear trap, and you can decide whether to rescue it or not. But in this one, at least the game kind of makes you believe it's the same section, but the dog in the bear trap is already like dead. So it's got a load of like pet the dog Twitter accounts on on high alert at that point. Yeah. But no, it's all looking very good fun. I think that's about it. I don't think there's much else to really say.
Did you discuss the release date, Pux?
Did they?
Was
it March? Is it March? I
want to say March. It's the same release date, so they'd already announced.
Had they already announced that? Apologies.
They'd already announced it was 24th of March, but they just confirmed it again in the trailer. And coming to the Series consoles, PS5, PC, and then also PlayStation 4, but not Xbox One. Just for reference.
That's weird. But I guess almost understandable in a way, I think, considering the likely console user base of the Xbox One at this stage. So, lovely. So I guess just before we move on to the next one, March, early next year is looking pretty stacked right now.
It's ridiculous.
I think it's
it's pretty heavy of big titles as well.
Yeah. What have we coming out? We got coming out over the next few months, especially maybe in the horror genre as well. Obviously, Callisto Protocol, they kind of doubled down on their December date after those rumors.
Game's gone gold
now
as well.
Gone gold,
obviously, Dead Space in January, Resident Evil in March. I'm sure there's others. Obviously, we went through kind of a horror phase fairly recently, so I'm sure there's a hell of a lot more.
Might have Alan Wake 2 next year as well. That was announced for 23. No specific date, and that's going to be survival horror. So, it's a great time. Great time to be a survival horror fan. Finally.
Yeah.
It's been too long.
All these games just need to try and get out before Tears of the Kingdom in May, really. You just want to try to make sure you give that some space if you can. So.
Yeah, next year looks ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Definitely. Especially if things do hit, obviously. We've had a lot of delays, which contributes to it. So hopefully we won't see any delays out of the year. But even with delays, I'm sure it's still going to be absolutely stacked across
even outside the horror genre as well. Like the amount of big profile games that have got moved from late this year to early next year. Like when you combine all of them together, as you say, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think which ones we've got. Obviously, we had the big delays from Xbox in Redfall and Starfield and Motorsport, and then Tears of the Kingdom and Spider-Man 2 and
Hogwarts Legacy that moved to February as well.
Yeah, all the games that we just discussed.
Final Fantasy 16.
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth as well as slated. Suicide Squad and games like that. So yeah, at the moment it's looking absolutely stacked, which is good. Hopefully a lot of those games will hit, and obviously hopefully they'll all be good. So
and hang on, and Silk Song as well. Let's not forget.
Yes, they did say that's coming out in the next 12 months. Yeah, we'll drop that one in for indie.
For indie.
Hopefully that one doesn't. Hopefully that doesn't slip. So, actually, and just on the indie scene, before we move on to No Doubt Silent Hill next week, I don't know if you noticed that the Somerville Twitter account got pretty active this past week. I think it seemed, and they started posting a lot of stuff from the game. I don't know if it was screenshots or just concept art or something. I think it was screenshots. But it was good to see that active, because they did originally say that game was coming this year. I suspect it's been pushed.
It must have been shifted. Yeah.
But it's good to see them active. Hopefully that means we're going to hear something on that pretty soon.
I think it must have been delayed. Surely, I mean, maybe not, but they just said it's coming this year, and then they never said when, and now it's kind of it's nearly November, so I doubt we're going to get a release date for the next 2 months, let's say. So it must be in the early next year time frame, maybe first quarter, which is absolutely fine. I mean, that's, well, maybe not for the game. Well, no, it's on Game Pass, so they'll be fine. But I'm just glad that they're showing more, because I really want that game. So
yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I actually jumped into Inside again recently.
Nice.
Just for I think just to jump in for some achievements. Believe it or not that I'm that kind of guy, but I jumped into that, and it just got me really excited for Somerville. And then obviously I saw them tweeting again, which was cool to see. So, but yeah, look, this past week we also had I think you're probably more excited for this than you were anything Resident Evil related. I think it's fair to say, but we also had the Silent Hill transmission this past week, and there wasn't a pachinko machine in sight.
Not a single one. A few skateboards, a few figurines at some points.
Yeah, there was some merch. They did show some merch.
But that's fine. And I like it. I mean, it's a scathing indictment of how little faith people have in Konami, that they said, here's, we're doing a Silent Hill event, this kind of dead series for 10 years that everybody, not everybody, but lots of people have been clamoring for. And everybody was kind of like, oh yeah, but you're not gonna show anything. It's just gonna be some bullshit, and then they were like, no, basically here's everything that we're working on for Silent Hill. I mean, I think there's maybe some more stuff beyond this, but here's a batch of stuff. So as a Silent Hill fan, oh man, I've been waiting for this for a long time. And there's been, the thing is as well, there's been so many rumors over the last year and a half. I remember the rumors being around during COVID, the start of COVID back in 2020. So everybody with every passing event was like, look, these rumors have to be incorrect, because why aren't they revealing this stuff? They're not showing anything, and the kind of rumors morphed around what was being made and who was making it and what the projects were. And then we finally actually get the transmission, and as a Silent Hill fan, I thought it was brilliant. I thought they did an amazing job.
They showed off, was it 4 games and a movie? Or 3 games in a movie? Or was it 4 games in a movie?
It's
4, wasn't it? Yeah.
They
showed off a lot. So, which of the announcements got you most excited then, mate?
It's, what? Funnily enough, it's I kind of I liked all of them, which is a bit of a cop-out answer. But I think going into it, one of the main rumors was about Bloober making a remake of Silent Hill 2, and for me, I just think Bloober are shit. I don't it's no offense to Bloober, I know, but even though it is offensive, But like, I don't think they've ever made like a really great game. Some of their games are okay. Um, so I was really skeptical of that project because like Silent Hill 2 is like probably the best horror game ever made, in my opinion. And it's almost perfect. Like you don't really have to do anything with it. At least in terms of writing or any element of the story. Like that's kind of it's almost like untouchable. You can't touch that. Um, and really, Bloober's biggest weakness is actually their writing, right? Because like some of their writing is just terrible. Like it's just really bad. So I was kind of going into it. I was kind of like, oh, I don't know because I don't really like Bloober. I don't think they're that great. But then I was like, but they surely won't rewrite any of this. And if they did, surely Konami would have, some kind of oversight on it. And luckily, kind of the way that the project is seems to be kind of the best of both worlds because, Masahiro Ito is involved and Akira Yamaoka are involved, who are the original kind of artists and composers from Silent Hill 2. And then they have other members in Konami as well, who were part of Team Silent way back when, who are working on it. And then Bloober are kind of obviously doing the heavy lifting of development, but actually they're doing the heavy lifting in areas that I think Bloober are really good at. So like visual design, alongside Ito, obviously in terms of creatures, etc. And all of that sort of stuff. So like that trailer I thought was amazing. Like I really like, and there's like like generally the reception to that trailer has been really positive. Obviously, there are many Silent Hill fans that are really picky about Silent Hill, especially 2. So like some bits, people are like, oh, it's they kind of messed that bit up or they've done that. But you get that in any remake where you've had a big amount of time between the games or such that you kind of your memory's doing so much work for the original game that you almost forget what the game looks like, if you know what I mean. And obviously it's not the same game. Like Silent Hill 2 was a Resident Evil style kind of fixed camera angle survival horror, and much like the RE2 remake, this game is a complete remake. It's over the shoulder, third person now. So but yeah, I just thought it was great. Like visually, I thought it looked incredible, absolutely incredible. It's running that trailer's running at 60 FPS. It's real time. And if anybody's seen the PC specs on Silent Hill 2, now the remake, they are some super demanding PC specs. Like the recommended is recommended for 1080p, 60 FPS, and if you actually look at them, like they're really high. So it's using UE5 and Lumen and Nanite, so it's really it might well be the first big UE5 game that we get, because if they're releasing PC specs at this point, they can't be too far away from release.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because I thought this would be a little bit further out, but I believe there was an interview with Bloober that maybe just came out over the weekend. Look, I don't know if you saw it, but they discussed the project a little bit, and they talked about how it was being fully funded by Konami. But I think they also mentioned that it had been in development at this point for 3 years already. Yep. So it can't be too far away. I'll maybe say possibly next year, maybe just add to the humongous backlog that will end up being 2023.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought that looked I'm really excited for it. I'm still skeptical because it's Bloober, but I will give them a chance here, because I guess they've got kind of that reign-in of original team members to actually guide them through this. So they're focusing on the technical stuff and combat, etc. And Bloober don't usually do combat at all, but I think they could do this quite well. So yeah, that looked great. And then the other projects, I think it was Silent Hill Townfall.
Yeah,
I think was one of the others, which was the Annapurna one, which that looked really great. And that obviously they didn't show much. It was kind of all a bit, cryptic in terms of what that is. But the developer is No Code, and the last game that they made was Observation. If anybody played that I think it came to Game Pass. which was a horror game, which is a really, really great horror game, and they have really great writers. So I'm quite excited for that. We don't know what type of game Townfall is. But the trailer kind of was sufficiently creepy, like it was a weird trailer, so I really like that. And then there was Silent Hill. What was the other one? Was it Ascension?
Yeah, I think Ascension was the one. Although
So
that's the one I've got the least amount of. I know they didn't announce an awful lot about the other two.
Yeah.
The other two, but that was the one I don't quite know what that one exactly is. Is it just another sort of game in the franchise, or is it a sort of a remake or anything of any previous game? Is it something brand new?
It's actually, so they didn't describe it really that well on the live stream, but the concept of it is actually really, really cool, and like I'm really interested to see how it works.
The multiplayer type one, Luke?
Yeah, but it's kind of not even that.
Yeah,
so when they described
it, actually.
Yeah. When they described it, I thought they might be talking about like an Until Dawn type game, but it's not that at all. So essentially, it's a cloud game, and it's going to be streamed apparently once, right?
Oh wow!
So
okay.
They're going to do this one time. And it's a choose your own adventure. So I guess it sounds like it will have kind of like Until Dawn type elements, but I'm not sure how much interactivity there is in terms of actual gameplay. And then the chat stream will choose collectively the branching path to create like a canon story by the end of it. So that's what it'll be. It'll be like a one-time stream cloud game, quote unquote, and choose your own adventure. Except you're choosing alongside the chat. Basically, it's kind of like a Twitch thing almost in a way, and that will create this story that you'll be able to enjoy. And then at the end of it, you'll have a canonical Silent Hill story. So I thought that's really cool. Like that's something that's really interesting. I think even people who aren't into Silent Hill would probably find that quite interesting as a concept.
Yeah.
So I'm interested. Like it'd be cool to see how it works, and what happens. What happens at the end of it.
Yeah, I think just based on that, I think it just sounds like something very unique, and with it being kind of a one-time thing, I think that'll attract a lot of people because a lot of people want to be a part of that experience. It's something that a lot of people probably haven't actually been part of before. So yeah, that sounds really interesting. Actually, be cool to see a little bit more of that. I remember hearing someone say something like, 1 versus 100 got weird or something like that, and they must have been referring to this. I didn't quite get it at the time, but that makes sense. Yeah. And then I guess the next big project that I think they announced it was F, Silent Hill F.
Yeah.
With very little information given.
Yeah, this was a really interesting one because again, the rumors had always pointed to, and VGC and such had commented on what they thought was going to be there months ago, or like what they thought was in the works for Silent Hill. So the rumors were always, a Silent Hill 2 remake by Bloober, an indie sensed game which by Annapurna, which was both of which are true. And then there was always a discussion about a kind of a new mainline Silent Hill developed by a Japanese developer that nobody seemed to be able to identify, that would be a bit of a new direction for the franchise in terms of setting, etc. And it seems like that's this game, even though they didn't show much of it beyond the CG trailer.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, look, about the change of direction. I did see someone on Twitter talk about the relevance of the F, and particularly not just it being F, but it being the musical F, and how that denotes on a sheet of music a shift in the music is the only way I can really
Yeah.
describe it. Obviously, I'm not a musician by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought that was interesting. But this was also the one I think of people talking about the potential of Kojima Productions being involved when the rumors of a Japanese developer being involved in Silent Hill came about. Everyone instantly went to Kojima. Did they actually announce who the developer would be during the showcase?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, which was when I was sat there, I was kind of like, oh, okay, like that's a really interesting choice. So I don't know. So like, I should just dial it back. We don't know if there's potentially another project because essentially before any of this happened, before the event, there was a concept art leak of a Silent Hill game in development, which was codenamed Sakura. Which has some similarities to what they revealed in Silent Hill F. But Sakura took place in the modern day. And it had this kind of weird like concept art with like halls full of post-it notes and it was in all the concept art was scribed in Japanese and the only main similarity it had to what they revealed was the concept art had a monster in it which was made up entirely of cherry blossoms, which obviously if you've watched the trailer kind of fits in the aesthetic there. But the developer for this game is actually Neobards Entertainment, which is a strange choice because Neobards, first of all, they're not a Japanese developer, although they do have a lot of Japanese developers. They're actually Taiwanese. And I think they're famous for making, like, in terms of things they've made themselves, they made some Resident Evil multiplayer games and stuff, and they've been a support studio for different developers as well. So this is their like first big game, essentially.
Quite the franchise for your first big game.
Yeah, like a really big thing to do, I guess. So that's interesting, and I was kind of like, I don't know. Some people like who I do kind of implicitly trust about this stuff, in terms of like being in, like Dusk Golem on Twitter, for example, who people might know, obviously knows his stuff and is very in the know. He was quite high on them, so he said they're actually a really talented studio, and they're like, this is their first big project. So, we need to see what the game looks like, but in terms of like aesthetic and stuff, like it looks super cool, I think, this, and it is completely different to what anyone expected, being set in 60s Japan, for example. Like, the art style is different, the themes are a bit different. Obviously, I don't know how that fits into Silent Hill, in terms of Silent Hill being a place, etc., but we'll to go there. And I think the thing that got people quite excited was the writer. So it's Ryukishio 7, who is the writer, who is a Japanese writer who's written a load of visual novels. Effectively, he's done When They Cry and a couple of others. Higurashi, I think, as well was another one. But he's like a really good writer. Like he's really good at character development, at weirdness, and all the things that kind of matter to Silent Hill. Almost, those kind of stories. So it was like just all round, like that game announcement was really strange because nobody expected the developers to be who they were or the writers to be who they were. Like, I knew Kojima was never going to it was never going to be Kojima.
Yeah.
But I think maybe some people expected maybe Bandai Namco would help with it or Konami would just do it all themselves in house, and they're not. They're kind of blending it between themselves and Neobard. So who knows what it would like, but it looked cool. I really like the trailer. It looked creepy. If you don't like things with holes, then that trailer is triggering, very triggering. Not for me because I'm fine with that, but for some people they had to like shut it off after like 40 seconds because they were like, nope. So yeah, it's interesting. But all in all, I think they did a great job, and I'm just really excited for Silent Hill games. Now bring back Metal Gear Solid and Castlevania. That's all they need to do.
It seems like Konami are maybe kind of going, dare I say, kind of like the kind of like Star Wars, Disney kind of route, where rather than developing the games themselves, they've obviously got this massive catalog of really popular IPs, and they're open to working with other developers that are happy to to take it on. And obviously with franchises like those that you mentioned, I'm sure there won't be any. I'm sure there'll be many takers for those types of games. So one question for you though, Luke: why Silent Hill 2 rather than 1?
Because Silent Hill 2 is a bit like Resident Evil 2 as to 1. So
Okay.
they take place in the same world, obviously, and they are canonically connected. But you don't need to have played 1 to play 2, like at all. In the same way, you don't really need to have played Resident Evil 1 to play 2. Apart from obviously there's some hangover in terms of certain characters or references, etc. The first Silent Hill game is a really good game, much like the first Resident Evil game is a really good game. But again, much like Resident Evil 2, Silent Hill 2 is like the best in the series, if that makes sense. So that's why they did 2, because it's the one that everybody really latches onto in terms of greatness, you know. So yeah, that'll be why.
Cool. So I think overall pretty pleased, almost pleasantly surprised, dare I say, because I know you and a lot of people had a lot of hesitation going into it. So pretty pleased overall and excited for the future of Silent Hill.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't think we'd be saying that, to be perfectly honest, anytime soon. So, Pux, I know obviously you were more excited for Resident Evil, or that was the one that you maybe enjoyed the most. But how did you find the Silent Hill announcements? Has it got you excited for that franchise again?
More intrigued than excited, if that makes sense. I'm not a big fan because I've never really engaged in the games much before, so I've nothing against them. It's just solely the fact that I've not played much of them. But I think it was, as you were just talking about, Silent Hill F, was it, when you kind of saw the weird, the old school kind of Japanesey girl in the old school get up and all the flowers kind of growing out of her on a raft, whatever it was. That kind of looked intriguing and interesting, and I think Luke's just kind of described all of what that's about, which sounds even more batshit crazy, but equally, it's very intriguing because I don't think anything like that's been done before. So it's one of those many things where, is it going to be a massive false promise or will it actually be pulled off? You know, who knows? But yeah, whether or not I'm excited, more intrigued than excited, I guess, is more accurate for me.
Yeah, I'd say for me personally, the one that stands out the most after hearing Luke kindly sort of explain everything was definitely the Ascension game. I think that could be something that's really, really cool, something completely unique. So yeah, looking forward to hearing a little bit more about them. But obviously those are future games. We do have, dare I say, a fairly big game coming out later this year. It's just a little game called God of War. We did see a lot of media previews drop. I think we'll maybe round out the show with this. And Luke, I know you're super excited for this game. Pux, are you going to be picking up God of War Ragnarok?
Oh, 100%. I loved the first game. It was my game of 2018. Fantastic.
Cool. So I assume you've had the opportunity to read some of the previews that came out this past week.
Yeah, I've kind of intentionally ignored a lot of them, but I've seen obviously some of the snippets and whatever else. And I think the one thing I found the most amusing when it came to talks about the development was them saying that they've taken so long to put together Ragnarok that, you know, the young boy in real life who plays Atreus has obviously hit puberty and his voice has dropped, and that almost in a way seemed like it inadvertently helped the character development in the game in a way, which I found quite funny. But yeah, that's kind of more of what I've read about, as well as obviously I've seen the images, I've seen very few snippets, but I've kind of intentionally tried to ignore stuff, which is quite rare for me usually. But
yeah, I've actually heard a lot of people say similar things, Pux, because I kind of think it's one of those games where I don't think you need to hear or read or watch previews of the game. I think it's a game that is most certainly going to be an unbelievable game for people who are fans of those games or that franchise. I don't think you necessarily need to hear what the media have got to say. Maybe other games, where maybe you're a little dubious or a little hesitant. these sorts of things help. But I think for a lot of people, they didn't need this. And on top of that, I think maybe like yourself, they don't want anything spoiled. I know there's someone that I was chatting about this week. I was sharing the links of the previews going out because I know he's super excited for the game. And he's just like, nope, don't want to read it, don't share, because he doesn't care, because he knows he's going to love it. And he doesn't want even a single thing spoiled. He's actually even stayed completely clear of all the trailers, even the most recent excellent trailer that they released.
That sounds like a challenge to do as well in today's world.
He's that excited for it. So,
I will say the one thing I have done, is because I'll be playing it on PS4. I don't have a PS5 at the moment. I've decided to wait until some point next year to pick up a PS5 as they're coming more in stock. Especially with the rumours that they might be bringing out an updated model at some point next year. So I thought, well, let's just see what happens. So I'll be happy to wait. But in the interim, what I have done, I'm still waiting for it to arrive, is I've treated myself to an SSD. So I'm going to upgrade my PS4 from a hard disk to just an SSD. I know it's a very minor improvement, but I thought, well, if it's a cheap thing I can do now, then I might as well in comparison, right? So
you're still going to play it on PS4, Puck? So are you going to hold off until you get a PS5?
No, I won't be able to hold off. No, yeah. I'll definitely be jumping in. Although I suppose the one thing, I know you're just going to talk to Luke, sorry, but I think the one thing I did find interesting, which I did read, was that people were saying that it's not like blowing people's mind next-gen visuals or things like that. And again, I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that this thing is fully playable with PS4 as well. And a lot of people are more kind of saying that, the PS5 version is just the better version to play, but arguably it's not much different. Is what I've generally heard.
I really don't get that argument personally, because Luke, you obviously mentioned Horizon being sort of one of the best looking games you've played. That's a cross-gen game. I think the trailer that they released just a little bit earlier this year looked unbelievable. I really don't get that. I really don't get that argument, but I have seen similar things, Pucks.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I was only going to say, like, I saw one or two people on Twitter say that, who have played the game, obviously. But then I saw like quotes from other people who were like, I think Easy Allies, for example, said that they thought it was the best looking game this year. Which is high praise, obviously in and amongst everything that's come out. And I think someone from VGC said, like, exaggerating it slightly, but he was basically like, you need to play this on a PS5 and an OLED because it's like playing PlayStation 6. So, like, I don't really, I find that argument, like, I don't know if the ones I've mentioned are exaggerating what they're saying, or the ones that, the other ones that I've seen are kind of grossly understating, what the game looks like. But as Scott said, like, you only have to look at the trailer they released. And I've only watched that trailer once at the time because I'm not going back again because I'm like, I need to forget as much as possible from that trailer. That trailer was like one of the best looking things that there's been like this gen. And I know it's a cross-gen game, but like it was. So I don't know. Like, I don't know who to believe. Although I think I trust Easy Allies more than some people on Twitter. So like they were pretty blown away by it visually, at least. I mean, in every other way as well, but visually, that's something they mentioned.
Yeah. Did you check out many of the previews yourself there, Luke? I know you're kind of a little bit on media blackout for the game, but did you take an opportunity to read many of them, or did you just try to find summaries and snippets just to kind of keep it brief?
I just try and keep it in snippets, basically. Helpfully, the Reset Era thread on the previews had people, doing the Lord's work and actually just literally taking snippets out of previews as like a kind of summary thing. So that was really helpful. Watch the Easy Allies one, which is no spoilers at all. And it couldn't be that spoilery anyway, because it's only the first 5 hours of the game, but nowhere has actually spoiled what happens in those first 5 hours, which is great. I've tried to remain on as much of a blackout. I mean, I muted like all the words God of War, etc. like 2 months ago, on Twitter. That's like, so that's how much. Like I'm like, I just don't want to see anything about this in terms of that could spoil it, because like the story of this game is so important in terms of if you've played the first game, the story is one of the primary driving things of playing this game. It's not like old God of Wars, right, where the story was fun, but it wasn't the thing that drove you to play God of War. It was kind of the combat. Now that's kind of they're kind of half and half now because the combat's amazing, but the story is so important to the game. So yeah, I just saw snippets, but like pretty much all of them that I saw, some of them were just overwhelmingly positive about it in terms of thinking that it's already better than the first game, which for 5 hours is a bold claim, but people believe it and they've played it. So others are saying it's like what you'd expect from a sequel. Like, I mean, obviously they were really positive about it, but they were saying, look, it's God of War 2018, it's bigger, exactly the things we described for Requiem, bigger, better, more bombastic. And I think someone said like the first hour for them had like more big moments, more kind of epic stuff than most games usually get in like 15 hours. And it kind of doesn't surprise me because I guess if you look at the trailers, especially, like there just seems to be like so much going on all the time, like so many big set pieces and boss battles and story moments. And yeah, it just, man, I can't believe we're only a couple of weeks away. I'm so excited.
Yeah, not too far away. And I would like to echo your comments on Easy Allies. And I know Indy said that Easy Allies rock in chat as well, but their coverage of games just in general is excellent.
Yeah,
I don't think you'll find a
amazing,
sort of fairer, more balanced, more passionate
No.
group of people on the internet, to be perfectly honest. So
can I add something else to the conversation
yeah.
as well, actually? Because one thing I did find interesting, which I had read about, was regarding the various video modes available. And again, given the recent controversies around Gotham Knights, everyone's gone on and said, well, like, again, media outlets have kind of gone, oh, is this like a subtle dig? And it's just like, no, I think they're just, revealing the info. But, there's 4 different performance modes in God of War, at least on PS5, I should say. Obviously, PS4 is restricted to 30, much like the first game. But yeah, PS5 has, obviously got its raw performance mode, 60 FPS, 1080 or whatever. Then you've got your nice super duper fancy at 4K 30 or 4K 40, actually. I think that's another option. 4K 40 is one. And you've got like the hardcore performance mode, which is 120 frames.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's just crazy. Again, when you're comparing it to what other devs are saying about what they can and can't do on the hardware, and you've got Santa Monica coming out and saying, oh no, our game's graphically intensive, but you can still do all that shit. It's it made me laugh when I read it.
Yeah, it's been a big part of the discussion the past week, and I think I tweeted at the time, Pucks was like, more of this, please. Because I think, if you don't mind 30 FPS, that's fine, but I just think having the option, especially now that we're kind of used to 60 FPS, I think, having that option these days and having those 4 different options is excellent. And to be fair, I think Sony's first party studios have been really good at giving options recently. I think it kind of really started with Spider-Man, didn't it? When Spider-Man introduced the performance ray tracing mode, and they started utilizing 40 FPS, which is becoming a little bit more common when you're on a 120 hertz display. So it's good to see. I kind of hope more developers sort of embrace that type of thing. I don't want to, just because I like the game, I don't want to give A Plague Tale a pass, but I also think you maybe have to look at like the resources available to certain developers. I think obviously God of War will have quite a big budget, probably a bigger budget than A Plague Tale, but something, I don't know, I kind of think with Gotham Knights and the studio behind it and the IP, kind of, I would expect maybe a bit more, where I could maybe give Asobo a bit more of a pass than, who's the developer on Gotham Knights?
WB Montreal.
Yeah, Montreal. Yeah, maybe I can give them a bit more of a pass than Montreal, but it's great to see. And I said at the time, more of that, please.
Yeah, and I think the thing is as well that like with Requiem in particular, you can kind of be like, okay, we should have a 60 FPS mode, but if for some reason that's because of budgetary constraints or maybe even some technical constraints, like we don't exactly know, but if it is, due to one of those things, particularly the latter, then you can kind of be like, okay, I can visually see why that might be the case, because it's pushing visuals so far that you're like, okay, look, this probably is really demanding, and maybe it is quite difficult to make a 60 FPS mode even for these consoles. I think, and the, you know, obviously God of War is a cross-gen game, but Santa Monica are like one of the best studios in the world, and they have massive budget, so obviously they can afford to put all these different modes in, even when the game is really pushing graphics like it is. But I think the problem with like Gotham Knights, and I don't want to shit on that game, but is that you can't look at the screen and go, well, I can see exactly why this is 30 FPS on console, because it doesn't look as impressive as either of the two games that have just been mentioned.
100%.
So yeah, I don't know why that is, but
I think on that point as well, like A Plague Tale do still have the 40 FPS mode if you've got a compatible display as well. So they do have some options, and you know, we talked about how impressive kind of the rat physics, dare I say, are in that game as well. But not only that, when you look at kind of the performance analysis of Gotham Knights, we're not talking about a locked 30. We're talking about dips into the mid-20s on, and it's a fast-paced game as well, so you'll really, especially you've got kind of like vehicle sections of that game, you'll really feel that when it dips into the mid-20s in that game. So, you know, it's not kind of apples for apples, it's not an exact science, these sorts of things, but yeah, I agree completely with you, Luke. So, but I think it's fair to say that God of War is it's got people pretty excited. I think the vast majority of the media previews that came out were overwhelmingly positive from everyone. And as you said, Luke, I think they said first 5 hours of the game, and did I read it was approximately 30 hours, 30 to 40 hours to mainline the game this time around?
Yeah. I think it was like 25 to 30 to mainline it, or maybe 35 to 40 to do everything. So yeah, there's a lot in there, and also, you know, I think just for context, people were worried about that last trailer because, and I was kind of the same about halfway through. I was like, I need to turn my eyes away from this because it seemed like there's so much like going on that would have been a surprise in the game. I was like, I don't want to see that. But then a lot of Santa Monica people came out and were like, don't worry, like this game is massive. There is a ton of stuff you haven't seen. Like, this doesn't really spoil any of even the biggest moments, that trailer. So, and I imagine the first 5 hours are very similar. You know, it's obviously very bombastic, I'm sure, but it's just a small portion of the game. So I'm looking forward to it. I think I can't remember when the embargo lifts, but I think it's pretty early.
It's November 3rd, I think, did I read?
Yeah. I think something like that, yeah. The 9th, November 9th.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll just have a look now.
Competing with Sonic Frontiers.
Oh yeah. Well,
it's got its work cut out. It's definitely
going to be Frontiers.
Yeah. I think God of War's got its work cut out for it. So
definitely.
Yeah. So it's November the 3rd at 5 p.m. UK time.
Yeah. So what's that? So 10 days? No, 11 days. So it'll be a week on Tuesday. No, not a week on Tuesday. Yeah.
Wednesday. Yeah. So so that's I'm really interested to see how. I mean, I'm sure it will do exceptionally well. You know, but the question is always, will it hit the heights of the first game in terms of scores? And I think it's got a good chance. So based on the previews, anyway.
Question you both, maybe just to round out this topic, and maybe the show, unless there's anything else that you want to say on it. There's been a lot of discussion around whether Ragnarök will beat Elden Ring. And I know we don't discuss reviews too much in terms of scores on this show, but obviously Elden Ring is, I think, by far and away kind of the highest reviewed game of the year so far, particularly in the AAA space at least. Do you think God of War will rival Elden Ring?
In terms of what I think would win Game of the Year, you mean?
I mean, I mean, obviously, it's all subjective, but I guess just in terms of how it's going to be perceived by the media pucks in terms of its review scores. I think Elden Ring, what was that, like 94 or something?
96.
96, yeah. It was stupidly high. Do you think God of War can rival that from a media perspective?
But in my mind, I'm thinking because it's a sequel, I'm wondering maybe not. Like, I think it'll be high. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I feel like it'll be a tad below because I feel like there's going to be a number of things that are going to be critiqued on because you're basing it on another game.
Yeah,
Like you're basing it on a obviously the previous one, whereas Elden Ring was kind of a different type of Dark Souls like, if you get what I mean. It wasn't the whole open world aesthetic and things like that. It was a kind of a brand new thing, even though it was the same type of game, but it was so different in terms of how it played, arguably. I know that's not very clear, because as I'm saying that, I appreciate, it's Dark Souls is Dark Souls, no matter what kind of environment you throw it in. But it was something about Elden Ring that was obviously different with the open world aspect, which made it feel like it was something completely different. Whereas this game is just a sequel of the same thing, which is, at least that's my understanding of these previews. As great as the comments have been, and I've not seen the videos, but people are saying it's basically more of the same, which is fantastic. But because of the fact it's more of the same, does that mean it will be better than something that was arguably quite new and absolutely blew everything out of the water? Yeah, I don't think so personally, but I think it'd be close.
I mean, if it helps, Elden Ring's currently sitting at 95 on OpenCritic, and the original God of War, or 2018 God of War, sorry, is 94. So it's pretty tight between them, and it does seem like this is going to be bigger and better in a lot of ways as well. So
yeah, I think it's quite hard to tell because like I get the comment about sequels, and they kind of have to work in some ways a bit harder than something brand new to the scene, because as you say, like there's overhang from the first game in terms of mechanics, and obviously they still have new mechanics, etc. But like it is a continuation of 2018, so it's gonna feel quite similar, in many respects. But then again, you had if you can, it basically, I think the holy grail for developing a sequel is if you can have an Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 2 moment, then you've basically done everything right, because Uncharted 2 was kind of more of the same of Uncharted 1, except much bigger, more expansive, better story, and that I think sits at 96 on Metacritic compared to the first game, which wasn't anywhere near that, and is widely regarded as one of the best action adventure games ever made. Like there's no reason that Ragnarok can't do that. I mean, obviously it can't do that to such an extent like Uncharted 2 did, because the first God of War in 2018 was already deemed a masterpiece essentially. But can it challenge Elden Ring? Well, yeah, I mean, I think it can. I mean, if it scores similarly to the first game, which I think is a good possibility, then it at least in terms of scores, it'll be there or thereabouts. Don't forget, God of War 2018 beat out Red Dead Redemption 2, which scored higher than it overall, kind of if you take aggregation scores into account. And I think the thing that Ragnarok will have going for it in terms of the Game of the Year stuff is kind of the recency bias. Because if it's an amazing game for people, and then they go into their voting, they won't. Elden Ring came out way back towards the start of the year, so even though they'll be like, "Oh, that was an incredible experience," I think in a lot of people's minds it might be like, "Well, yeah, but God of War, wow, Ragnarok was amazing," because it's simply the most recent game that the most recent masterpiece that they've played. So it may get some advantage just from that alone. But yeah, let's see. I mean, if it does win, then we know that Jeff's paid by Sony or whatever. So, well, he always is anyway. So what's another payday for God of War Ragnarok to win? But there will be people that have meltdowns on Twitter if Ragnarok is, first of all, amazing, and secondly, if it does win Game of the Year over Elden Ring. So let's wait and see. But it definitely has a chance of doing that. Yeah, I think it's the only game actually that has a chance of beating Elden Ring.
Yeah. I think that's fair, yeah. And it's funny you say the whole Jeff thing. It's funny because it's true that people will have that meltdown, which is a shame really, because we should be celebrating, whether you like the game or play the game or not. We should be celebrating the fact that such a good bloody game has seemingly come out, So Yeah, I look forward to that conversation. The one that I can't wait for, Luke, is the accusations that Jeff has filled with the dates to make sure that God of War is eligible for the conversation in the first place. That's the first one, because obviously Forza missed out because of dates, apparently.
Yes,
not because of anything else. So.
No, yeah. So we'll have that first. We'll have that debacle. And then people will get over the fact that it's nominated by self-rationalizing that it won't win. And then if it does win, their whole world will crumble around them as they scream at their TV that Jeff has been paid by Sony. So I really want, like, next year, I really hope like Starfield wins or something, Game of the Year. Because if it does, then what are those people actually going to do at that point? It's
you know what it'll be? Like, the narrative will then be he did that to throw people off the scent. He did it, so that'll be it, because he knows that the Xbox are onto him. So he wants to throw them off the scent by throwing a ball on Xbox ways.
Either that or they'll say that Starfield is just so objectively good that he couldn't, like, in good conscience, take any money from Sony. Yeah. Like, it's just such a great game. I really hope it does win, actually. But that'll be interesting in itself.
I mean, I know we just kind of had that sequel discussion, but like I can't look past Tears of the Kingdom at the moment for next year.
Oh yeah, true.
To be honest, but it's testament to the quality of the games that are currently lined up for that year, you know. But it'll be fun. It'll be fun. Well, hopefully it'll be fun. So yeah. Oh, we've got the porn bots in again, gents. They're a bit later this year. This week, but the back in. They're back in, so thanks for whoever's deleting it. I think Indy's onto them. Thank you very much, Indy. I've just noticed them.
I should have left them in. That's a good way to sign off the show. People can go and have some fun after the fun.
Exactly. So if you want to go to that URL that was in the chat, knock yourself out. Could be in for a good time.
Yeah.
So anything else on God of War before we finish up, gents?
The only thing that I was thinking of that I find quite refreshing is when you said earlier that the estimated play times are about 25-30 for story or whatever it was, and then up to 40-ish for 100% of everything else. So, like, for such a massive game as well, like, I do just love the fact that they are focusing on the story they want to tell, and they're not just bombarding it with content for the sake of making people put, north of 100 hours into it. And because I know this is an argument that's happened over and over again, and it depends on the game for the type of person as well. But I know for me, like, all different games that come out that need, like 100 plus hours of gameplay, I've got much less time. I've got more limited time now, so like I can't be focusing on that one game for months on end and to barely get anywhere. So I find it really refreshing that actually it's a nice, decent play time, at least for me.
Yeah, great.
Lovely. Well, I think we'll round up the show there, gents. I'm going to try to do an outro in OBS, so we'll see how that goes. So I apologize if I make a complete arse of it, but thank you both very much for joining. As I said at the beginning of the show, we did switch over to OBS, and I think it's actually gone, without any real hiccups. Yeah. I think it's gone okay, which is good.
I think it's gone great.
Yeah, thanks to Indy for all the help this week. It's been really, really kind of Indy just to help get things set up. Hopefully we'll be able to make some improvements, like get video back in and maybe have some improved graphics for next week, but we'll see. But yeah, I just want to thank everyone in the chat who's dropped by. We had a few other people. Sorry, Stubbs, I didn't give you a shout, mate, but Stubbs did drop by as well. Appreciate you coming by, mate. But I guess without anything else to say, Pux, Luke, thank you all very much for joining. Hopefully we'll be back next week. Just as a reminder, we're going to be doing Sunday evenings, 7:30 p.m. UK time going forward. That'll kind of be our regular slot, and then what we'll do is we'll be using Sunday mornings and Thursday evenings as a backup if we have any sort of issues that prevent us from doing a Sunday for whatever reason. So look out for the link for next week's show when we get that up. We will hopefully try to get some guests on as well that we did have lined up for the past couple of months that we didn't quite manage to get on the show. We'll hopefully be able to get those guys on as well. But with that, I want to thank everybody for joining, and we'll see you all next week.